Hello team, this is Monica and today I'm going to do my book review on The Art of Authenticity, Tools to Become an Authentic Leader and Your Best Self by Carissa Thacker. Thacker's book is designed to give readers a boot camp on authenticity and authentic leadership. She structures the book in three parts. The first part is focused on understanding and exploring the new vision of authenticity, which she claims has changed, especially in the more recent digital age. The second facilitates learning the science behind authenticity and authentic leadership and understanding how exactly to tap into your authentic self or selves, and we'll get to that later. Well, the third part invites readers to take a master class and apply what they've learned. Throughout the book, Thacker uses anecdotes and case studies drawn from her own experience as a management consultant. And each chapter also includes workouts that readers can use to build and reinforce what they've learned. Thacker starts off her book by asking the question, why is authenticity so important? We're living in a digital age of freedom and fear. We have 6 key changes that have happened in the past 10, 20, 30 years that have really affected what it means to be authentic and the importance of being authentic. This concept of authenticity has been around since, Greek times. It was important in Roman times, and of course, Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true." I mean, that's authenticity right there. But what Thacker says is there's 6 key things that have really changed the marketplace. The smartphone, the rise of social media. These work hand in hand. We're always connected. We're always, posting images of ourselves, living our best life, which can often be inauthentic. There's a fear also of posts going viral that might affect you down the line. We're also living in an age where there's a lot of rapidly changing markets, and so people may be inauthentic in the way that they respond to changes in the job market. Generational shifts, those also cause people to perhaps not be as authentic as they once were, because you may have a baby boomer who's now working for a millennial. And so that's kind of shifted the whole hierarchy, where it used to be that the more senior members of an organization were the leaders. Now often, because we're working in teams and there's been this flattening of the hierarchy, you could have people who are much younger leading teams or leading organizations. Another issue that we have is layoffs and downsizing. That causes a tremendous amount of fear, and as people try to adjust to all of these changes, they may fall into the trap of trying to reinvent themselves without really staying true to their values, without really tapping into what makes them unique. And so just like the sheep on the cover of her book, we just become followers and try to blend in and be who we think others want us to be. So Thacker talks about signature contributions versus conformity. This idea that we need to consider how as leaders, how as members of a team, we have special contributions, unique attributes that contribute, that we're not just conforming to what everybody else thinks we should do. Some of the questions she asks you to consider are, what would have happened differently in your workplace today if you had not been there? What impact did you have on a conference call, a meeting, or the project today? And how would your team be affected if you were absent for a month? By asking these questions, you really tap into what contributions, what unique things you bring to a team. She also says one of the things that we're often focusing on is developing our weaknesses. We want to say these are our strengths and our weaknesses are something that we have to work on. But she challenges you to accept your weaknesses, because by accepting your weaknesses, you're also opening the door for somebody else to come in and contribute in a way that they can best serve a team. She likes this idea of being open to experiments, and in that sense, it's really open to new ideas. Rather than saying, well, we've always done it this way, to be authentic is to be open and to allow for some uncomfortableness. And so being open to change, being open to trying new things is something that's key to being authentic. Finally, she says, find meaning in your work. If you're passionate about what you do, then you're really going to come to work every day and fully engaged and ready to contribute. And finally, again, just celebrate your quirks. What sets you apart, what makes you unique, is often more important than what makes you the same as everybody else. One of my favorite chapters in the book had to do with charisma and how followers need to beware of charisma. Thacker says there's two types of charisma. There's so-called GG, or greater good charisma, and there's GM, or greater me charisma. Now, the greater good charisma would be represented by someone like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., somebody who's very charismatic, but he uses this power to serve the community, to work for the greater good. And this picture that I found really exemplifies that. He is a charismatic leader, but you see him linking arms with others. He's leading, but he's within the group. He's really pushing for, to make the world a better place. An example of a greater me, or a GM, charismatic leader, would be Hitler. There's a couple of others too, Mussolini, right? They are focused on the personification of charisma. And so it becomes all about them. And so they're the center of attention. And she said one of the things that we have to do when we're in business is we may, in business or in anything, we may be attracted to work for a leader of an organization who's very charismatic, but we need to consider, are they a greater good charismatic? Are they Oprah? Or are they a greater me charismatic? Somebody who's, closer to Hitler. Another concept she talks about is this idea of having selves, not just a self. Each person has different selves. We have our current self, our former self, our future self, the self that we want to be, and we also use different selves for different situations. She talks about some fixed traits that we may have, as well as how we can be authentic and be different in different situations. So there's no, even though we may have some fixed traits, there's no fixed self. There's different selves for different situations. Another concept that Thacker brings into this authentic leadership process, the science, is how authentic leaders are collaborative when it comes to decision making and really consider all outcomes. So they're processing things in a more balanced way. She talks about the power of those words, I don't know. Those 3 words that can go a huge way in getting the buy-in from other members of your team. While some people may be happy just sitting back and letting somebody lead, when a leader says, I don't know, it opens up the opportunity for others to step up and say, well, I think this, or actually I do know that, and contribute more fully to the process. She also says it's really important to know your biases when you go into a situation. She says we can try and operate and say that we don't have any biases, but we do. Everybody has some biases, and we need to know those and acknowledge those. She also says when you're forming a team that it's important to value antagonists over yes men. You want to have people that come in there and play the devil's advocate because they're going to add more to the team. They're going to help you experiment. They're going to help you think about new ways of understanding a problem and coming up with creative solutions. And those are things that authentic leaders are willing to accept. One of the quotes Thacker has under relational transparency and honest conversations is, "You can't manage a secret." She talks about the fact that a lot of times if you don't have honest conversations with your team members, if you are not transparent in where the company stands, what's going on behind the scenes, it's going to turn around and bite you in the you-know-what. And so although transparency isn't necessarily an either-or proposition, you can have some level of, opacity there. She said it's always more, you're always going to get further if you are willing to be open, honest, and of course, talk to people and open up the books rather than keeping things undercover. Tuning into your moral compass is another thing that she focuses on, although she calls it your internalized moral perspective and active unique GPS system, because we've got to bring it into the digital age. She talks about the fact that we do need to be true to ourselves, understand our internalized sense of right and wrong, but remember that that moral compass sometimes is situational. Sometimes there's not a right or wrong answer. Sometimes there's two right answers. And this is something that we also have been reading in our leadership book for the class. This idea that we need to, if we're authentic, we're going to look at where our morals and our values are, and we're going to act accordingly. She also said it's really important for people to maintain these, what she calls psychological guardrails. These are what keep you on track. There's certain things that we're never going to do, so regardless of the situation, and that's okay. You just need to, remember that in being authentic, sometimes it's going to be hard. Sometimes you're not going to be able to find a solution. The third section of Thacker's book is really this master class, and it's really focused on taking authentic leadership from theory to practice. The chapters focus on how to make conscious decisions, how to read culture like an anthropologist, how to accept and reconcile yourselves because you do have multiple selves, and also how to ferociously seek the truth despite all of the posturing, the spinning, and the framing that's going on. Being authentic isn't easy all the time, but it is about determining who you are in your own way and making the contributions only you can make. Thacker says the process does involve tough choices, hard work, and struggle. But she says, remember to have fun and savor those virtue buzzes along the way. And in the words of Dr. Seuss, she ends her book, "Today you are you, that is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you." Thank you. So the $1 million question, would I recommend this book? Yay or nay? I say yay. I found much of Thacker's advice to be valuable, and it made me consider how being authentic, embracing one's uniqueness, and saying, like Jeff Spicoli, I don't know, can lead to more growth personally and professionally. I was lazy and I skipped the workouts, but I found them to offer good insights into one's authentic selves. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys on Zoom next week.